Today we are going to work on our video for the notes on the Roman military and the very basic outline of the three Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage. So the Roman military is known as the Roman legion, and a legion would have a military unit of 5,000 infantry, so foot soldiers, supported by a cavalry, supported by soldiers with horses, and those were called the legionnaires. Rome has a massive army, but it's not just the size that's important. It's also the strength of the army itself, their responsibilities to Rome, their not necessarily patriotism, but their pride in the Roman Empire, and also their skill and their superior military leadership, which gives them a huge advantage over all the different provinces that they conquer. Some of you will recognize this scene with this man. That is Russell Crowe from the Gladiators movie, Gladiator. And he's at that very beginning of that film leading a legion in Europe. When Rome defeated the Etruscans, we talked about the Etruscan kings that influenced Roman society. When they first conquered the Etruscans of the north and the Greeks, the Athenians, the Spartans, and the other Greek units that we talked about before, they are going to start doing some really nice things. Like, they have full control of the Italian peninsula, right? The thing that looks like this, right? They control all of that. But they're special in that they treat their conquered people with fairness. Similar to how we talked about the Persians were very tolerant. So because you have people within your society who weren't necessarily Roman to begin with, but you treat them as if they were Roman, they tend to go to bat for you. They tend to want to support you and maintain your control if they couldn't have control of their own. Now, there is a place in Africa, right, just across the Mediterranean, so down here, called Carthage. And Carthage is a city in what is area we talked about as being controlled by the Phoenicians at some points in history. But this is going to have massive sea trade, which is, as you may remember, what Rome was doing too. We talked about Rome controlling the sea trade across the Mediterranean, and that's how they had all this awesome stuff. Well, the Carthaginians are threatening that control. So we end up having a series of wars called the Punic Wars, and there are 3 of them. They last, if you can do the math up here, they last for more than 100 years. Remember that your numbers look backwards because we're still in BC time frame. We're going to make that transition into CE time frames in this unit. So as they're competing, if you look, the purple is the Carthaginians and the red is Rome. So they're competing for all this space. Technically, the Carthaginians have it, the Romans want it. You know, who could blame them? They've got all kinds of islands and people and shipping lanes you could use. So in the first Punic War, Rome wins and they take over Sicily. Sicily is the triangle that the boot is kicking. And let me hear if I can erase this really quickly and I can circle it again. This triangle that the boot is kicking is what Sicily is consistent of. Then we're going to move on. Told you it was basic. The second Punic War is one in which a man named Hannibal appears. And Hannibal is this bad boy up top, riding the war elephants. Hannibal travels along the coast of Africa, crosses the Strait of Gibraltar, that's what's right here, is the Strait of Gibraltar, then travels back up through Spain, through France, down through the Alps with elephants to conquer Rome. These are bad dudes. I mean, can you imagine you as an infantryman, a foot soldier, with your shield and your helmet and your sword, and there's an elephant coming at you? That's not going to go well. So they're actually really, really effective, but the problem is that the Alps, we've talked about how steep they are and how cold they are and how rugged they are. That's not exactly an elephant's natural habitat. So they end up actually getting massively destroyed by the Roman Empire before reaching the heart of Rome, before actually reaching the city of Rome, which is up here on your map right here, this big orange blob I'm now drawing. So there's a general whose name is General Scipio, and he's known for defeating Hannibal in 202 BCE. So first one, oops, sorry. The first war, Rome wins and gets Sicily. The second one, you don't really see that it's a Roman victory because, like, look at all this that the Carthaginians were able to get. But Rome is still Rome, so chalk one up for them again. The third war is more of a, hey, let's get some revenge. So it's, if you notice, 50 years later. Rome goes back through and destroys what's left of Carthage and enslaves the Carthaginian populations. We've talked about that before, that the slaves of multiple or different countries and multiple different empires were the members of the defeated armies and the defeated populations. The Romans don't treat the Carthaginians with the same tolerance and respect that they had treated like the Greeks, for instance, or the Etruscans, but it's because they've been mortal enemies and they don't want to have the Carthaginian spirit being able to rise back up and rebel again. So that ends the Punic Wars, is that the Carthaginians get totally wiped out, and all of this that they once had in the islands of Piedmont and Sardinia, all these islands that they've once had are now under Greek control. If you check out our timeline, you've got this expulsion of the kings. That's the Etruscan taking over the Etruscans. Then they're going to have law codes, which we've talked about before, right? The 12 tables. Then you're going to have the Gauls. These are what we used to call, what we used to call the French. Gaul is in France. Fight some more wars, fight some more wars. And then here you have the Punic Wars, while you're also fighting the Illyrian Wars and wars with the Macedonians. Remember Macedonia from over here in Greece, where Alexander the Great and Philip II were for? They're going to fight them while they're fighting the Punic Wars. It takes a really long time. And then we're going to have the first tribunal, or triumvirate rather, and we'll talk about that on another time. So why do we talk about the Punic Wars? It's because Rome is able to absolutely dominate the entire Mediterranean basin for more than 100 years. An entire century. People will not see the beginning and the end of the domination of the Mediterranean. So this allows Roman culture, the Latin language, the religion, which we'll talk about how their religion changes, the art and the architecture and the learning and all those cultural phenomenons that we've talked about with Greece that we're also going to talk about again with Rome are going to diffuse. Remember that word diffuse means to spread. They're going to spread all that Roman culture around the entire Mediterranean Sea because of control of it after the Punic Wars. They're also going to expand to the north. This is talking about that same diffusion, right? The culture spreads through the Mediterranean basin, down through Africa. This counts as Asia. The Middle East is always a part of Asia. But they also are going to go north. They're going to take over France, the British Isles, the parts that are now Germany, Austria, Hungary, Switzerland, right? All these areas are going to be controlled by the Roman Empire, which unites Europe for the first time in history. And really for the only time in history do all these, in the second map right here, do all the red places fall under the same empire. You know, Alexander the Great, to put it in perspective, Alexander had this. He didn't have Europe. He didn't have the European section. So for those of you who are fans of shows like maybe the Vikings, when you have watched that show and they've gone over to England and they've ransacked some of the towns in England, they find Roman paintings and they find Roman coins, and they don't know exactly what they are, but they know that these people were great. They're talking then about the Romans. All right, so that's all we have for these notes. Make sure that you have all your blanks filled in, because I will be checking for them as a homework grade. And if you have any questions, send me messages. Thanks.